This is how most model train trucks, or bogies, come from the factory. A black truck frame with all silver wheels. For many modelers, this is sufficient and looks just fine. I don't begrudge that. For my models, however, I want to make them look a little more realistic. I run almost every truck on every car through the same routine I'm about to demonstrate here. I touched on this topic in the first video about weathering the refrigerator car, but I'm going to solely focus on the process for this video. I'm using Intermountain metal wheels and Tichy Bettendorf truck frames in this video, but the process is pretty much universal for freight car trucks. Now that I've finger skateboarded the assembled pair of trucks to the side, it's time to get going. I'm going to start by painting the outside faces of the wheels. The exact method you settle on for painting these parts is going to come down to what works for you. What works for me is either dropping a dab of paint on the wheel face and working it around until it covers everywhere on the face and rim of the wheel, or just loading the brush up and rolling the axle in my hand to rotate the wheel on the brush. Once both outside faces are painted, I always make sure to run the tread of the wheel up and down a paper towel over track to remove as much paint overrun as possible. It's not impossible to remove the paint later, but it's certainly easier when it's wet. Once all four wheel sets have been painted and are set aside to dry, I turn my attention to the truck frames themselves. I treat these the same way I treat a freight car body. First things first, they get an initial coating of Tester's Dull Coat. Dull Coat usually dries decently in a few minutes, but the paint on the wheels takes a few hours to dry, so I usually pause the project after the first round of Dull Coat. When I return, I paint the axles and inner faces of the wheels. This might be a bit much for some modelers, as these parts of the wheels are usually hidden, but I like to do it anyways. The method I usually use for this part of a wheel set is to cover the axles thoroughly, then tackle the inner face with whatever excess paint there is. If I don't have enough, usually the residual paint at the top of the bottle is more than enough to finish the job. With the wheel sets painted and wiped off, they are set aside to dry for the second and last time. Now I turn my attention back to the truck frames. They will receive one coating of brown powder, followed by a second and final round of dull coat. This isn't going to make them mind-blowing as far as weathering goes, but it will give them the appearance of a little dirt, rust, and character. The method here is exactly the same as the one I use on car bodies. Scrape a pastel chalk into a container to create the powder, brush the powder onto the truck until it's well covered, and dull coat it. I usually only go after the sides and ends of the truck, as the other parts won't be visible under normal circumstances. The dull coat will spread the powder around a little, but it usually settles pretty nicely. Once the wheels and frames have dried, we're just about ready for reassembly. There's just one more thing left on my list, and that is to lightly brush some powder onto the outer wheel faces, then brush off anything that doesn't stick. I think this roughs up the appearance of the wheels a hair. With that done, all that remains is to pop the axles into the truck frames. And that's all there is to it. One pair of trucks that, I think, are much more realistic than when I started. Here's the unpainted pair from earlier for comparison. There's not a whole lot more to say about this. If you're thinking of giving all or some of this process a try, go for it. About the only downside I can think of, so long as you keep paint out of the truck's bearing holes, is that converting an entire fleet of cars will keep you busy for months. Sometimes I speed this job up by spending an evening painting a batch of wheels beforehand. That way I can powder the trucks and simply pop a ready set of wheels right in. Whatever you do, stay safe out there, and enjoy the world's greatest hobby.